Guys, how's it going with these work lights?
I'm getting them rigged up, all right. All right, save it. If you turn the lights on, it's gonna drain them quick.
How quick?
5 minutes, maybe 10.
Yeah, if that.
Emergencies only. Something gets in the store.
The only reason this scene exists, where two characters trapped in a supermarket stumble upon work lights during an apocalyptic event, is because the director wanted to create this shot,
God! Oh my God.
this shot, and this shot. Those seemingly chaotic shots, along with many others, make up a legendary sequence known as Scene 35, from the film adaptation of Stephen King's The Mist. I've always loved this film and the way it captures how fragile civilization can become if a nightmarish event like this ever really happened. And although the film is known for having one of the most polarizing endings of all time, the director Frank Darabont had at least settled on a version of the script he felt confident in before they ever shot that final scene. But the script for Scene 35, on the other hand, was a completely different debacle. But we'll get into all of that soon enough. The Mist is a story that was originally birthed from the mind of Stephen King while he was grocery shopping one day, right after a storm just hit Bridgeton, Maine, where he was living at the time. He said trees fell over, there was a major power outage, and how the city was a mess. But while in the store, he pictured a prehistoric bird, big as a pterodactyl, flapping its way towards the meat counter. He also noticed that the front of the store was completely covered in plate glass.
The entire front of this store is plate glass.
Jesus Christ.
And he thought to himself, wouldn't it be terrifying if a giant bug just flew into the window? And years later, this nightmare that King imagined while grocery shopping with his son led to this. In the film, we follow David, a man searching for answers after a violent storm. With the phones down, he heads into town hoping to find out what's going on, but soon finds himself trapped in a supermarket with several strangers surrounded by giant insect-like creatures lurking within the mist. So just for a little more context, Scene 35 in The Mist is where the otherworldly mutated creatures invade the store, creating a chaotic scramble for survival amongst the characters. There's these large flying creatures with stingers known as scorpion flies, and a large pterodactyl-like creature chasing them throughout the store known as pterobuzzards. Buzzards. Now these names were never used for the creatures within Stephen King's novella. The creators of the film were the ones to come up with the names. This scene had been fully scripted with a completed storyboard of how all of the events would play out. All of this was one full week of filming, so not exactly something you want to improvise, since improvising is normally a technique that's done while filming smaller moments in films and usually not long chaotic moments like we see here. But Frank realized that to shoot this long chaotic scene in the movie, it would require the proper lighting, which the scene didn't have because in the story, the power outage leaves the store to only be lit by candles and flashlights, which would not provide the proper lighting required to film a large-scale nightmarish store invasion. So that in itself created a new issue. And although Frank took many creative liberties in changing the story from its original form so things could translate better on screen, this might be one of the more important changes. With there being no power in the store, how can he have it make logical sense for the viewers to be able to see what's happening once the chaos occurs? And that's where Frank made his first creative change to this scene by having the two characters, Jim and Myron, discover the industrial work lights in the back of the store, which also assisted the plot by adding reasoning to the store invasion, because the characters come to discover that the scorpion flies were attracted to the lights.
Myron, get the ones in the back.
God, I think they're attracted to the light.
Look out, look out, look out!
The light, douse the light!
So not only does that modification to the story now logically justifies Frank to have the proper lighting needed for the scene, but it also provides cause and effect, and it displays a disadvantage for the perk of the survivors no longer having to sit in the dark. And when you really think about it, the temporary relief of being able to have the lights resulted in a major downside since it led to many deaths, which of course wasn't preventable by the survivors because they had no clue of the threat they would be up against if they chose to use the lights. But up to that point, everything was so far so good for Frank, until Scene 35 and the creatures actually invading the store. The very moment that originally inspired Stephen King to write The Mist is the same moment that pushed Frank Darabont to his limits, turning Scene 35 into one of the most stressful and chaotic scenes to film of his career, so difficult that he abandoned the script entirely for that scene. But before we further dive into the amazing innovation that was born from the chaos of trying to film scene 35, we have a quick message from today's sponsor, Manta Sleep, the creators of the world's best sleep mask and sleep accessories. Manta Sleep is all about helping you recharge, promoting better sleep and power naps so you can wake up feeling sharp, focused, and ready to take on the day. And for the nocturnal community out there and the night owls, it's even more important that we get our necessary rest after a long night of movies and episode binging. And to be honest, I'm not normally a sleep mask kind of guy, but I do enjoy listening to music or a podcast to help put me to sleep. And also when I'm traveling or just chilling at home, I hate being disturbed by someone turning on a bright light waking me up. And a lot of times when you're traveling, that's just something you really can't prevent. That's until now. The Manta Sound sleep mask is actually super comfortable to wear, and that's the one you're seeing on camera right now. And with the flat built-in Bluetooth speakers, you don't have to worry about how uncomfortable it is to lay on your side with traditional headphones or AirPods. And then on top of that, you get these relaxing eye cups inside the mask that provide 100% darkness no matter where you are without having any pressure on your eyes. And if the Manta Sound sleep mask doesn't sound like the right one for you, they have several other sleep mask options for you to choose from with some other cool color variations as well. So I think it's safe to say that at this point, Manta Sleep has made me a sleep mask kind of guy. So head over to mantasleep.com and use my code Nocturnal to get 10% off your first purchase. And thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. And now back to our regular scheduled programming. So from here, let's explore what didn't work in scene 35, the narrative changes that actually improved the story overall, and why throwing out the script and improvising the entire scene was the best possible decision in hindsight. So the first major event we should talk about that just didn't work once it was time to start filming was the scene containing one large creature we never got to see on screen. And that was the giant mutant centipede that enters the store and almost kills Billy, but luckily the centipede is killed by Irene with the makeshift flamethrower. This was a really cool scene that I personally would have loved to see in the film, but I also understand why the director Frank Darabont decided to remove it. So, The Mist from beginning to end is a very emotional movie. I mean, there are literally no action or suspenseful sequences in the film that don't contain some level of dramatic emotional depth, and that was on purpose. And what I mean by dramatic emotional depth is that there are no action or suspenseful scenes that exist strictly for shock factor. There aren't any scenes in the film where you can look at it and say, that was a cool thing they did there, but why? Every intense scene like that has a justifiable purpose beyond it just looked cool, so we added it to the film. And once again, that is for action or very suspenseful scenes. Take the creature attack that killed Norm, the bag boy in the loading dock. On the surface, that's just a wildly intense scene about a stupid boy getting himself killed. But beyond that, in this moment, a silent brotherhood is initiated and formed between David and Ollie. Ollie previously showed David kindness when it came to helping to look out for his son. Plus, it was clear that they already had some type of cordial relationship before the chaos, which we noticed when David first entered the supermarket.
Somebody help me! Somebody help me! What the fuck are you waiting for?
And when he cried out for help to try to save Norm, it was only Ollie that stepped in to assist while the others cowered. This was a major, intense, and suspenseful moment that exists for many reasons, but in this context, it shows how Ollie was a real friend and displayed courage even during a moment of life or death. David knew from this moment alone that Ollie would be someone that he could truly count on. And honestly, it really sucks that Ollie went out the way he did since he was such a loyal friend to David. But another moment like this that comes to mind is the pharmacy scene with the creepy mutant spiders. Once again, on the surface, David and his group go to the pharmacy to hopefully bring back medical supplies to help the others after the store invasion. And in the process, all hell breaks loose and they barely make it out alive. But beyond that, that scene was an emotional and pivotal plot element added to the story.
I'm sorry. Help me. It's all fault. It's all our fault.
I mean, just think about it. In that scene, we learned that the military is behind the mist, with one of them specifically saying how he's sorry and how it's all their fault before falling over and seeing how his back was eaten by spiders.
He said he was sorry. Wasn't that the word he used? Sorry?
That's right. He said it was their fault. Right?
Because of that moment, we now end up with this scene of Morales and Donaldson's suicide, and this scene where we see that the remaining soldier, Private Jessup, is stabbed and tossed outside by the angry mob to be killed by the monsters. That initial intense pharmacy scene initiated all of these following elements to progress the plot. Even the reason behind going to the pharmacy makes far more sense in the movie than in the original novella. In Stephen King's short story, David and the others head to the pharmacy purely as a precaution, just in case they might need medical supplies later. But in the film, people are actually injured during the supermarket invasion, which creates a real, immediate need for help. And that urgency justifies the group attempting to help. It feels more believable that they would risk stepping into danger to save someone rather than willingly walking into a life-threatening situation with no pressing reason. But that now brings us back to scene 35. See, originally in scene 35, the giant centipede was randomly added to the sequence strictly for shock factor, and there was never any real reasoning behind why it suddenly enters the store. Not that there needed to be. I mean, this is a chaotic science fictional apocalyptic event where anything is possible, but the creator still wanted the chaos to follow a logical chain of events. That's why the scorpion flies were originally attracted to the lights, almost like a moth to a flame, and why a terror buzzard ended up inside the store in the first place. It was feeding on the scorpion flies. Every creature's arrival for that scene had a clear cause and effect, except for the centipede, which is exactly why the filmmakers later removed it, ultimately choosing coherence over spectacle. If all of these random creatures just started invading the store without reason, it would no longer make any sense why the survivors were able to survive so long. Then narratively, we have to talk about why it made more sense to have Ollie save Billy instead of Irene, and why it's a wise strategic decision to have a small moment during the chaos where a scorpion fly lands on Miss Carmody and then have it suddenly fly away without harming her at all. Why do these choices land better emotionally and create stronger, more engaging storytelling? Well, once again, we have to look at David and Ollie's relationship, especially leading up to these events. Although Irene was a part of their group, her and David never displayed a strong emotional connection between each other, so the moment would not have held the same emotional weight. It would have felt like a random one-off gesture to have her save Billy instead. Plus, the director Frank still used Irene's badass flamethrower moment, but it was instead repositioned in a more fitting sequence in the pharmacy scene. But throughout the film, David and Ollie form a quiet but genuine alliance. Ollie stands up for David.
This man crazy. He's crazy.
No. He isn't. I wish he was, but he isn't.
Believes in him.
I'll go out and clear whatever's blocking it.
No, you can't do that.
Why not? It's an electric door, right?
Well, yeah, but it may not be wise to send him out there.
And supports basically every decision he makes.
I'd like to leave before people start drinking the Kool-Aid.
He's right. The luckier people get, the better she's gonna look.
So when Ollie saves Billy, it feels like a natural extension and a reinforcement of their existing bond. And it makes it sting just that much more emotionally once Ollie saves Billy for a second time by killing Miss Carmody for trying to sacrifice Billy.
We can start worrying about who she's gonna sacrifice to make it all better. You, Amanda, my little boy.
We want the boy.
You
We
get
want
back.
the boy. No, you give us
You get
And they all leave to escape together, and Ollie is torn to pieces. But at least we can say he has a cool death, and he goes out with a bang by the introduction of the giant crab monster, which we actually never see again throughout the film. Then there's one last major element that I'd like to discuss surrounding the added narrative of Miss Carmody in scene 35, along with the ambiguous setup that dares to explore whether her extreme rhetoric might have actually held some truth. This was another one of Frank Darabont's added narrative elements in the film, which was actually a visual narrative element to be exact. So during the store invasion, while people are either running for their life, being murdered, and or injured, the director Frank Darabont improvised a very clever moment to include in this unforgettable scene. And that was the moment when he decided to have a scorpion fly land on Miss Carmody's chest, and instead of having it kill her, which a lot of viewers would have loved to see, myself included, it flies away and spares her life in front of several witnesses. Such a small creative liberty made in this moment by Frank Darabont. But what exactly does that now do to the story, and how does that affect the plot? Well, I'll tell you. So throughout the film, Miss Carmody is the embodiment of religious hysteria and human desperation. She takes everyone's fear and fear mongers them into a mindless cult. She's a thematic counterweight to the mist itself. And the same way the mist brings monsters from another dimension, Miss Carmody brings out the monsters already inside of people. And instead of keeping Miss Carmody in a 100% antagonistic perspective throughout the movie, like Stephen King's original novella, and what I mean by that is, the reader never questioned whether or not if Miss Carmody was right. It was always made clear that she was a little crazy. So instead of going the same route with the story, Frank Darabont wanted to explore the ambiguous nature of a version where viewers could say, well, what if she was right? So because he wanted to take this approach to the character instead, we get an establishing scene where Miss Carmody is preparing to preach until she's blue in the face. She begs God for help to save those she believes are unholier than thou. And one of the first things she says once she leaves and she's back out in the store around the others is,
There's no defense against the will of God. There's no defense here either. Not even with all the fertilizer in the world. Not even if you stack it as high as you can. It's still just bags of shit, isn't it?
And during the store invasion, her statement turns out to be correct. So she proposes that everyone should just prepare to die.
Well, what are you saying? What are you proposing?
That we all prepare to meet our maker.
And that the end of times has come, not in flames, but in mist. And keep in mind that this is way before the other strangers in the store have witnessed any kind of monstrous occurrence. Up to this point, only these characters have seen what has happened. And although the truth is eventually revealed to everyone later about the military's involvement, clearly showing that this is a government experiment gone wrong and not some unexplainable biblical event, it's too late for that now because everyone is too deep under Miss Carmody's influence. And this moment is the perfect time for Miss Carmody to start gaining influence because the masses haven't yet witnessed the nightmares to come. So we get more moments where she spews out these wild, desperate religious gambles like this.
There is one God. And he is a stern and vengeful God. And now he demands retribution in blood.
This.
They'll come for you. Maybe tonight, when darkness comes, they'll come tonight. And they'll take someone else.
And this.
We're gonna send back help.
You'll die out there. All of you.
Moments like these spark some of the biggest discussions surrounding the film, especially since many viewers also theorize that Miss Carmody's prophecies were correct the whole time, since the mist doesn't clear until after David kills his son. So now going back to scene 35 and witnessing Miss Carmody not be harmed by an otherworldly creature who seems to easily kill others it comes in contact with, well, that was a genius narrative addition, which as I mentioned was all improvised for scene 35. And keep in mind, it took Frank Darabont about 2 years to write The Mist, and after throwing out almost everything he wrote for this sequence, it took him 7 days to improvise a better version. In hindsight, I think it made more sense for Frank to throw out the script because even an experienced filmmaker like him understands that a lot of ideas that you have in your head may not come together cinematically once it's time to execute and bring those ideas to life, and he understood that. And you know, it's kind of funny because Frank said himself that he enjoyed the tight budget and time restraints that he faced while filming this movie because it forced him to thrive under the pressure. And I think a great example of him knowing exactly what he was talking about was not only this amazing thought-provoking Stephen King film adaptation, but it was scene 35 itself.